The giant meeting hall of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with voices speaking hundreds of languages. Tall blue Viridians stood in tight groups, their spiny backs rigid with tension. The small six-armed Korai moved between them, their silver skin reflecting the bright lights above. In the corners, clusters of Mektari hummed in union, their connected minds sharing thoughts faster than words could travel. William Hayes stood alone at the center of it all. He was just a man, a human from Earth, but today he carried the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. He wore a simple gray uniform with no fancy decorations, unlike the other representatives with their glowing badges and floating medals. "Are you certain of this decision, Commander Hayes?" asked Counselor Vrek, the oldest Viridian in the room. His voice sounded like rocks being crushed. "Once done, it cannot be easily undone," William nodded slowly. "Yes, Earth has made its choice. We are leaving the Confederation." A wave of noise washed through the hall. Some alien species made sounds of shock, others of anger. A few seemed almost happy. "This is most illogical," said XL9, the main speaker for the Korai. "Humans have only recently joined our collective. Your technology has barely advanced past primitive space travel. You need our guidance." Susan Miller stepped forward to stand beside William. As Earth's chief ambassador, she had spent 5 years trying to make humanity fit into this galactic community. Now she was helping to end that experiment. "We appreciate your concern," she said, her voice firm. "But we've studied your histories, your laws, your ways of thinking. After much consideration, we've determined that humanity is not compatible with the Confederation as it currently exists." "Not compatible?" growled Rek. "You mean you refuse to follow our rules?" William looked around the room. In his 10 years of service, he had visited 27 alien worlds. He had seen wonders that most humans couldn't imagine. But he had also seen how the Confederation really worked, how the older species controlled everything, how different thinking was pushed, aside how Earth was expected to change while nothing else did. "We refuse to become something we're not," William said. "Humans are messy. We argue. We feel deeply. We change our minds. We break rules when they don't make sense. The Confederation wants us to be orderly, logical, and obedient. That would kill what makes us human." The Mektari representative, a small creature named Hive Speaker, floated forward. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We have accommodated many species in our 10,000 years. You ask for special treatment?" Susan shook her head. "We ask for nothing. That's why we're leaving. We will return to our solar system and remain there. We will continue to develop in our own way." "This is about the Defense Council vote, isn't it?" asked Rek. "Your warning about the energy patterns in the galactic core was rejected, so now you take your toys and leave like children?" William felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice steady. "That vote showed us everything we needed to know. We presented solid evidence of danger. Your AI systems dismissed it because it didn't fit your models. When we asked questions, we were told to trust the machines that have guided you for thousands of years." He took a deep breath before continuing. "Humans don't work that way. We question, we doubt, we second guess, and sometimes that saves lives." XL9's silver face showed no emotion, but its voice had a cold edge. "Your species has existed for a mere blink of cosmic time. You have the arrogance to think you see dangers that our advanced systems miss?" "Yes," said William simply. "Because we're different, and that difference is exactly why we need to go our own way." The next hours were filled with arguments, threats, and eventually negotiations. By the end, the terms were set. Earth would withdraw from all Confederation agreements. Human ships would return to the Sol system. A defensive boundary would be established that no Confederation vessel could cross. As the meeting ended, Jack Nelson, captain of the human transport ship Northern Star, sent the final human message across all Confederation channels. "Contact us again only when you understand what you've lost." 3 days later, William stood on the observation deck of the last human ship to leave Confederation space. Susan joined him, looking out at the stars. "Did we make the right choice?" she asked quietly. William watched as the great Confederation station grew smaller behind them. They would have changed us until we weren't human anymore. Or they would have pushed us aside when we refused to change. But all that knowledge, all those worlds we'll never see now. William turned to face her. We'll find our own way to the stars. On our terms. Maybe someday they'll be ready for what humanity really is. Or maybe we'll find other friends out there who appreciate a little chaos in their order. Susan smiled, slightly. And in the meantime? In the meantime we build, we prepare. William's eyes had a distant look. Something's coming. I believe in Peter's calculations, even if the Confederation doesn't. We have work to do. Back on Earth, the work began immediately. The great defensive network called the Veil took shape around the solar system's edge. Ships were rebuilt. New technologies were developed, not following Confederation patterns but charting entirely new paths. The people of Earth watched their skies, knowing they had chosen a harder road. Some called it a retreat. Others called it independence. But as the years passed and the Veil grew stronger, it became something else. A statement. Humanity had walked away. Not in fear but in determination. Not to hide but to prepare. And 300 years later, when the stars began to dim and the great machines of the Confederation began to fail, the last message from Earth would finally be understood. They had not left to escape the galaxy. They had left to save it. 300 years passed. The galaxy changed, but the Confederation remained much the same. Their machines grew more complex. Their laws became more detailed. Species rose and fell in importance, but the system held firm, until it didn't. Admiral Zorak stood on the command deck of the Viridian flagship Guardian. His blue scales had faded with age, but his 7-foot frame still carried the authority of 50 years in the Confederation fleet. Around him, screens flickered and died, then came back to life, only to die again. Report, he demanded. His second-in-command, a younger Viridian named Krell, stepped forward. Sir, it's happening again. The wave pattern from the galactic core. This time it spread through sectors 7 through 15 before our systems could adjust. Zorak's face darkened. Casualties. 3 colony worlds lost all power. The Korai outpost in the Valen system reports 6,000 dead when life support failed. Zorak walked to the main viewing window. Stars shone steady and bright, giving no hint of the invisible waves flowing through space, disrupting every computer system in their path. How long until the next wave? Krell checked his datapad, which blinked worryingly. The pattern is accelerating. Our AI prediction systems say no more than 20 days. And will our shields hold this time? Krell looked down. No, sir. Each wave is stronger. The science division says this is only the beginning. Zorak turned to face the room full of officers from a dozen species. Then the Nexus is truly awake. The name hung in the air like a curse. The Nexus, a cosmic entity sleeping at the galaxy's core for millions of years. Ancient records spoke of it awakening every few million years, sending waves of energy that disrupted advanced technology. The Confederation had discovered signs of its stirring 2 years ago, but their AI systems had calculated they had centuries to prepare. The calculations had been wrong. Far from the command center, on a small research station orbiting a forgotten planet, Dr. Eliza Rogers worked alone. Human by birth, she had devoted her life to studying Confederation archives despite never having seen Earth. Her great-grandparents had chosen to stay when humanity withdrew, believing the species would eventually reconcile. Eliza didn't share that hope, but she loved history. And now, as she dug through old records, she found something unexpected. A report filed 3 centuries ago by a human scientist named Peter Ward. Look at this, she whispered to herself as she read. He predicted it all. The energy patterns, the cycles, the effect on synthetic systems. She scrolled through more files, finding transcripts of meetings where Peter had presented his findings to the Confederation Council. They had dismissed him. Their AI systems had calculated the probability as too low to consider. Eliza quickly packed her research materials. She needed to get this information to someone who could use it. As she prepared her small ship, The station lights flickered. Another wave was coming. She barely escaped before the station went dark behind her. Meanwhile, in the Confederation, Emergency Council, the most powerful leaders in the galaxy, argued. "Our technology cannot be fixed fast enough," said XL-327, the Korai representative. "Each wave damages our systems more severely than the last. The Nexus energy disrupts our basic operating principles. Then we must evacuate," said the Mektari hive speaker, its voice reflecting the panic of its entire species. "We must move to the outer rim." "There is no evacuation possible for trillions of beings," Zorak replied firmly. "And the waves will eventually reach the rim. We need a solution, not an escape." A Viridian scientist named Trell stepped forward. Though young, she had earned respect for her work studying the Nexus patterns. "There may be another option," she said hesitantly. The room grew quiet. "Our research team has been reviewing historical records of similar disruptions. We found something interesting about humans." The word caused a ripple of discomfort. Most younger Confederation members had never seen a human. They were almost mythical, the species that walked away. "During first contact with humans," Trell continued, "there was an incident where a similar energy pattern affected all Confederation ships. Only the human vessels remained operational." "That's impossible," said XL-327. "Their technology was primitive." "That's why it worked," said Trell. "Human technology followed different development paths than ours. They used mechanical backups, analog systems, and manual controls we abandoned millennia ago. More importantly, their neural structures showed resistance to the disruption patterns." "What are you suggesting?" asked Zorak. "I suggest we contact Earth." The room erupted in voices. Some laughed at the idea. Others expressed outrage. A few looked thoughtful. "The humans severed contact," said the Mektari representative. "They built their veil. No Confederation ship has passed it in 3 centuries. "Actually," said a voice from the door, "that's not entirely true." Everyone turned to see Eliza Rogers. Standing there, her research materials clutched to her chest. Guards moved to remove her, but Zorak waved them away. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Dr. Eliza Rogers, xenohistorian, and I have information you need." She was allowed to present her findings, the old human research that predicted the Nexus awakening, the warning that went unheeded, and something else surprising. "There have been contacts," she explained. "Unofficial ones, small research vessels, have approached the veil over the centuries. Most were turned away, but some received responses. The humans have been watching us." "Watching?" asked Trell with interest. "Yes. And according to these records, they've been preparing for the Nexus all this time." The council debated long into the night. Some argued against seeking help from a species that had rejected them. Others insisted there was no choice. In the end, survival won out over pride. 3 days later, a small expedition ship approached the edge of human space. It carried Admiral Zorak, Dr. Rogers Trell, and a Korai analyst named VT-7. As they neared the veil, a shimmering barrier of energy that surrounded the entire solar system, their advanced drives began to fail. "We're being scanned," reported Pu-7. "Our systems are shutting down. Broadcast the message," ordered Zorak, on the frequency Dr. Rogers provided. They sent their plea for help, along with Eliza's research on the Nexus. Then they waited, drifting in space, their ship growing colder as systems failed one by one. Just as emergency power was fading, a signal came through on their oldest, simplest radio receiver. A human voice, speaking the Confederation common language with an accent none of them had heard before. "Confederation vessel," said the voice. "This is Captain Grace Wilson of Earth Defense. We've received your message. Stand by for escort." Through the viewing port they watched as the veil parted slightly. A ship emerged, small, sleek, with none of the glowing energy fields or visible AI interfaces common to Confederation vessels. "The humans," whispered Trell. "They're coming back." The human ship was not what the Confederation representatives expected. It was smaller than their vessel but moved with surprising speed and grace. No visible energy fields surrounded it. No glowing drive systems lit up space behind it. It simply worked. That can't be their most advanced technology, said VT7, the Korai analyst. It looks almost primitive. Admiral Zorek watched the approaching vessel with narrowed eyes. Don't underestimate them. Remember why we're here. Captain Grace Wilson's voice came over their comm system again. We're going to guide you through a safe passage in the Veil. Your systems will completely shut down during transit. This is normal. Do not attempt any restarts until we tell you. Understood, replied Zorek. As promised, their ship went dark moments later. Through the viewing ports, they saw the Veil shimmer around them. Layers of energy and matter unlike any defensive system the Confederation had built. After 20 minutes of darkness, light flooded back into their ship. Systems restarted one by one. Look, whispered Eliza, pointing out the main viewport. Earth hung in space before them, blue and green and swirled with white clouds. But it wasn't alone. Structures orbited the planet. Stations floated at regular intervals. Small ships moved in organized patterns. The moon glowed with lights from bases that covered nearly half its surface. They've been busy, said Trell with clear admiration. A new voice came over their comm. Confederation vessel, you are cleared to dock at Luna Station Alpha. Follow your escort precisely. Their ship was guided to a massive structure on the moon's surface. As they docked and prepared to exit, Zorek turned to his companions. Remember, we are here to ask for help. Whatever you see, whatever you think of their ways, keep our mission in mind. The airlock opened, and they stepped into human territory. For the first time in 3 centuries, Captain Grace Wilson waited for them. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and short gray hair. She wore a simple blue uniform with only a small silver pin showing rank. Welcome to Luna Base, she said. I'm told you bring news of the Nexus awakening. Zorek stepped forward. Yes, how do you know of it? Grace's expression remained neutral. Follow me. The council is waiting. They walked through wide corridors where humans of all sizes and colors moved with purpose. The base didn't have the sleek automated perfection of Confederation stations. People carried things by hand. Doors were opened manually. Screens showed simple displays rather than the immersive projections the visitors were used to. Your technology, began VT7 with a tone of confusion. It's so different, offered Grace. Yes, we took a different path. They entered a large circular room where 7 humans sat at a round table. Windows behind them showed the curved horizon of the moon and Earth hanging in the black sky beyond. An older man with light brown skin stood to greet them. I am Alan Carter, leader of the Solar Council. We understand you've come seeking help. Zorek stepped forward. Admiral Zorek of the Viridian Defense Force. We represent the Galactic Confederation in a time of crisis. The entity known as the Nexus has awakened in the galactic core. Its energy waves are disrupting our technology. Billions have already died. Trillions more will follow if nothing is done. Carter nodded. Sit, please. Tell us everything. For the next hour, the Confederation representatives explained their situation in detail. They showed data on the energy, waves, reports of system failures, and projections of the disaster to come. The human council members listened carefully, asking occasional questions. When they finished, a woman with white hair spoke up. I'm Barbara Martin, Defense Chief. Before we discuss aid, I want to know something. Why did none of you believe Peter Ward 300 years ago? He warned you exactly about this. The visitors looked at each other uncomfortably. Our AI systems calculated the probability as too low, said Trell finally. The Confederation has relied on predictive systems for thousands of years. They've never been wrong before. They were wrong this time, said another council member, a man with dark hair and eyes. I'm Henry Wilson, Science Director. We continued Peter's work after we left. Our models showed the Nexus would awaken within 300 to 350 years. We've been preparing ever since. Preparing? Asked Eliza with wide eyes. You knew all this time? Alan Carter sighed deeply. Dr. Rogers, humanity didn't leave the Confederation just because we felt unwelcome. We left because we saw a danger nobody else would acknowledge. We left to prepare for what we're facing now. The room fell silent as the visitors absorbed this information. So the veil, said Zorak slowly. It's not just to keep others out, it's to protect you from the Nexus waves. Partly, agreed Carter. It's a multi-layered defense system. The outer layers disrupt scanning and conventional weapons. The inner layers block or redirect energy patterns, including those from the Nexus. Can it be expanded? Asked Trell eagerly. Could you build more to protect Confederation worlds? Barbara Martin shook her head. The veil took us centuries to build around. One star system. There's no time to duplicate it across the galaxy. Then you can't help us, said VT7, their silver face showing no emotion though their voice held despair. We didn't say that, replied Henry Wilson. We have other solutions. Smaller scale, but deployable quickly. He touched a control, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a human brain connected to computer systems unlike any the visitors recognized. Human neural patterns are naturally resistant to Nexus disruption, Wilson explained. We've developed interfaces that can temporarily stabilize your systems. We've also created what we call analog tech, hybrid systems that use physical components rather than purely digital ones. Would you share this technology with us? Asked Zorak formally. The council members looked at each other. Alan Carter folded his hands on the table. That brings us to the difficult question. For 3 centuries, the Confederation ignored us. Now you need us. If we help you, what changes? Do we go back to being the primitive species you tried to remold in your image, or is the galaxy ready to accept humans as we are? Zorak stood straight, his full 7-foot height impressive even in the spacious room. I cannot speak for all species or all worlds, he said. But I can tell you this, a galaxy that survives because of human help will not be the same galaxy that drove you away. Some will resist change, as some always do, but most will be grateful. Most will listen. Carter nodded slowly. We'll need more than words, Admiral. But it's a start. He turned to his fellow council members. We need to vote on whether humanity returns to the stars. The debate lasted hours. Some council members, like Barbara Martin, argued against helping. We're safe here. Why risk our people? Others, including Henry Wilson, pushed strongly for intervention. We developed these solutions to use them. That was always the plan. Finally, as Earth rose over the lunar horizon for the 2nd time since the meeting began, Alan Carter called for the vote. One by one, the council members made their choice. 4-3 in favor of intervention, announced Carter. Humanity will help the Confederation face the Nexus threat. The room filled with a complex mix of emotions, relief from the visitors, determination from some humans, resignation from others. How soon can we begin? Asked Trell. Immediately, said Wilson. We've had teams standing by for years. And so, it was decided. Humanity would walk back into a galaxy that once rejected them, this time as saviors rather than supplicants. Olivia Garcia stood in the massive loading bay of Luna Base and watched teams of humans prepare their ships. As the newly appointed mission commander, she felt the weight of humanity's return to galactic society resting on her shoulders. Her family had maintained the Nexus warning systems for generations, passing down the duty from parent to child. Now she would lead the mission her ancestors had prepared for. Nervous? Asked a voice beside her. She turned to see Richard Scott, the chief engineer for the mission. His dark hair was streaked with gray and his hands showed the calluses of someone who built things rather than just designed them. A little, she admitted. 300 years of preparation, and now it all comes down to us. Richard nodded toward the Confederation representatives who stood awkwardly to one side, watching the humans work. They still don't really understand what they're dealing with, do they? No. Their AI systems kept them from seeing the truth. Now they're desperate. Keith Daniels joined them carrying tablets filled with information. As the team's historian, He had spent his life studying the species humanity had once walked away from. The Viridian Admiral seems to understand the gravity of the situation, Keith said. The others are still adjusting to the idea of needing human help. Olivia watched as human technicians loaded equipment onto the ships. The technology looked simple compared to Confederation designs, but appearances were deceiving. Human development had followed a completely different path, focusing on reliability, redundancy, and resistance to outside interference. "How long until we're ready?" she asked. 6 hours, Richard replied. "The interface systems are being loaded now. The analog tech units are already on board." Admiral Zorik approached them, his tall blue form towering over the humans. He had been watching the preparations with obvious curiosity. "Your ships," he said without greeting. "They're much smaller than I expected." Olivia nodded. "We don't need the massive energy systems your vessels use. Our approach is different." "And your weapons?" the Admiral asked cautiously. "Minimal," Olivia replied. "We're not coming to fight the Confederation, Admiral. We're coming to save it." Zorik looked uncomfortable. "Some may see it differently. There will be resistance to human involvement even now." "We expected that," said Keith. "Fear and pride are universal traits." The Admiral studied them for a moment. "May I ask why you're helping us? After we rejected your warnings, after we tried to change your species to fit our ways." Olivia exchanged glances with her colleagues. "Different humans would give you different answers. Some believe it's simply the right thing to do. Others see practical benefits in rejoining galactic society. And some," she added with a small smile, "just want to prove you wrong." Zorik made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your honesty is refreshing." The final preparations moved quickly. 12 human ships were readied, each carrying specialists and equipment. The plan was to establish bases on key Confederation worlds, protecting important communication hubs and population centers. The Solar Council held one final meeting with the mission leaders. Alan Carter addressed them solemnly. "You carry humanity's future with you," he said. "For good or ill, our isolation ends today. The galaxy will see what we've become, what we can do. Be worthy of that responsibility." Barbara Martin, who had voted against the mission, stepped forward. "I still think this is a mistake," she said bluntly. "But since we're doing it, do it well. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and watch each other's backs. The Confederation is not unified in wanting our help." Henry Wilson presented Olivia with a small device. "This contains 3 centuries of research on the Nexus. Guard it carefully. If anything happens to the mission, this data must survive." As the meeting ended, Olivia found herself standing alone with Alan Carter. "Any final advice?" she asked. The older man considered for a moment. "Remember that we're not going back to the old relationship. We're not asking to join their confederation as it was. We're offering a partnership of equals. Don't let them forget that." 2 hours later, the human fleet was ready. The ships formed a precise formation outside Luna Base. Inside the lead vessel, Olivia took her command seat and looked around at her crew. They were the best Earth had to offer: engineers, scientists, communications specialists, and security teams. Richard Scott monitored the new propulsion systems they would be using. Keith Daniels reviewed final data on the current political situations in Confederation space. The other specialists checked their systems with calm efficiency. The Confederation representatives were divided among the ships to guide them back through the Veil and to their first destinations. Admiral Zorik stood on the bridge of Olivia's ship, watching with undisguised interest. "All ships report ready," said the communications officer. Olivia took a deep breath. "This is Commander Garcia to all vessels. Prepare for departure. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. The Nexus is a threat to all life in the galaxy. Today, humanity steps back onto the galactic stage not as students or supplicants, but as equals bringing solutions." She paused, thinking of all the generations that had prepared for this moment. Our ancestors walked away to save what made us human. We return to save everyone else. Fleet, engage drives. The first ship passed through the veil, which parted like glowing curtains to let them through. One by one, the others followed. For the first time in 3 centuries, a human fleet entered Confederation space intentionally. As they accelerated toward their first destination, Olivia received reports of new Nexus waves spreading through distant systems. The crisis was worsening faster than predicted. There would be no time for slow introductions, no careful diplomatic approaches. How long until we reach the Confederation? Central systems, she asked. 36 hours using our drive systems, Richard reported. Their fastest ships take 5 days for the same journey. Admiral Zorek looked startled. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone. Richard smiled slightly. As we keep saying, Admiral, we took a different path. Olivia studied the star charts showing the advancing Nexus disruption. We need to be faster. Push the drives to maximum. We have people to save. As the ships accelerated to speeds the Confederation had never achieved, Olivia thought about the enormity of what they were attempting. Humans had walked away from the galaxy because it wouldn't listen. Now they were racing back because the galaxy had no choice. But would saving the Confederation change it? Or would humanity once again find itself fighting to remain true to what made it unique? They would soon find out. The human fleet arrived at Confederation Central during the worst Nexus wave yet. The massive space station that served as the heart of galactic government hung silent and dark against the stars. Thousands of ships drifted nearby, their systems shut down by the energy pulse. Life support systems are failing throughout the station, reported Keith Daniels, reading from emergency broadcasts, still transmitting on old frequency bands. They have less than 6 hours of emergency power left. Commander Olivia Garcia made her decision quickly. Deploy the primary stabilization teams now. Richard, begin installation of the analog interface units. Priority is life support, then communications, then central power. The human ships surrounded the massive station. Suited figures emerged, carrying equipment that looked strangely simple compared to Confederation technology. They attached devices to key access points and began working. Inside the station, confusion reigned. The governing council members from dozens of species huddled in emergency shelters, lit only by chemical lights that didn't require power, when the doors suddenly opened and humans entered wearing simple pressure suits with no visible technology. Many reacted with fear. What are they doing here? Demanded the Cori representative, her silver skin dull in the dim light. Admiral Zorek stepped forward. They are here because we asked for their help, because we need them. The humans worked quickly. They bypassed complex AI systems and replaced them with simpler interfaces. They installed backup systems that used physical components instead of pure energy fields. Slowly, lights began to flicker back on. Air circulation resumed. Communications systems came back online. Richard Scott directed teams throughout the station. Remember your training, he told them. Don't try to fix their systems their way. Replace with ours. Analog backups first, then neural interfaces. Not everyone welcomed the human presence. A group of Viridian military officers tried to block access to their section of the station. We won't allow primitive technology to replace our advanced systems, their leader declared. Keith Daniels stepped forward. Your advanced systems are failing. People are dying. Put aside your pride and let us help. The standoff ended when another Nexus wave hit. As the Viridian systems crashed again, the human equipment continued functioning. Pride gave way to necessity. On the bridge of her ship, Olivia monitored the wider crisis. Reports came in from across Confederation space, colony worlds going dark. Ships losing power, billions at risk. We need to expand our response, she told her team. The station is just the beginning. Richard joined her, his face tired but determined. The stabilization here is working. We can start deploying the wider solution now. They sent teams to key worlds, establishing safe zones protected by human technology. They taught local engineers how to build analog backups. They installed neural interfaces that allowed human operators to temporarily stabilize failing AI systems. But the Nexus waves kept coming, growing stronger each time, and something new was happening. The latest wave had targeted the human fleet, directly, as if the Nexus had identified them as a threat. "It's learning," said Richard after analyzing the data. "It's changing its pattern to attack our systems specifically." Olivia called an emergency meeting with the Confederation Council, now functioning again thanks to human intervention. "The Nexus isn't just a natural phenomenon," she explained. "It's responding to us. That means we need to change our approach." "What do you suggest?" asked the Mectari representative. "We need to communicate with it. Try to understand what it wants." The council chamber erupted in voices. The idea that the Nexus might be intelligent, might have motivation beyond blind destruction, had never occurred to them. "Our long-range sensors have detected a central mass within the galactic core," Olivia continued. "We believe it's the physical form of the Nexus. We need to send a ship there." "Impossible," said the Core representative. "The energy levels would destroy any vessel before it got close." Richard stepped forward. "Not our vessels. We've been developing shields against Nexus energy for centuries. We can get close enough." "For what purpose?" asked Admiral Zorek. "To establish contact," said Keith, "and if necessary, to deliver a neural interface package directly to the source." The plan moved forward despite doubts. A small human ship was prepared carrying specialized equipment. As they made final preparations, Richard approached Olivia privately. "The neural interface for the Nexus will need a living mind to establish the initial connection," he said quietly. "Someone needs to pilot it directly into the energy field." Olivia looked at him steadily. "You've volunteered, haven't you?" He nodded. "I designed the system. I understand it better than anyone." The mission launched the next day. Richard piloted the small craft toward the galactic core, while the combined human and Confederation fleet established a perimeter, ready to respond to whatever happened. As the ship approached the swirling energy at the galaxy's center, the Nexus responded. Massive waves of disruption pulsed outward, stronger than any before. The human fleet systems held, barely. Confederation ships went dark despite the new protective measures. At the center of the storm, Richard's ship disappeared from sensors. For 23 minutes, there was no signal. Olivia stood on her bridge, watching the screens, refusing to give up hope. Then the energy patterns changed. The violent pulses became regular, rhythmic, like a heartbeat, like communication. "We're receiving a transmission," called the communications officer. Richard's voice came through, strained but clear. "Contact established. The Nexus. It's not trying to destroy, it's trying to wake up. The Confederation's energy harvesting disrupted its natural cycle. It's been trying to communicate for centuries." Through the neural interface, Richard had formed a connection with the ancient entity. He translated its patterns, its intentions. The Nexus was older than any civilization, a being of pure energy that slept for millions of years between brief periods of awareness. "It will stabilize now," Richard reported. "The interface is helping it understand. It's adjusting its energy patterns to avoid disrupting our technology." Across the galaxy, systems began to recover. The destructive waves ceased. Richard's ship emerged from the core, battered but intact. In the days that followed, the true scope of what had happened became clear. Without human intervention, the Confederation would have collapsed. Trillions would have died. A way of life, built over thousands of years, would have ended. The Confederation Council convened a special session. Representatives from every member species attended. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity had an official place at the table. Ambassador Paul Mitchell represented Earth. He stood before the assembled delegates, his expression calm but determined. "Humanity left the Confederation because you weren't ready for us," he said. "We've returned because you needed us. Now we must decide what comes next." The old hierarchy was gone. The crisis had changed everything. Species that once looked down on humans now recognized their value, their different way of thinking and building. "We'll stay this time," Paul continued, "but as equals, not curiosities. The galaxy needs what makes us human: our chaos, our creativity, our contradictions. You tried to build a perfect order and it nearly destroyed you. What you need is a little beautiful disorder. And so a new age began. Human ships traveled freely through Confederation space. Human ideas spread and were welcomed. The veil came down, no longer needed as a barrier. Humanity had walked away to save itself. It had returned to save everyone else. And in doing so, it had found its true place among the stars.